as we approach the week of lecha, there's a new star in heaven, Avraham Avinu, the beginning of a Jewish nation, and the purpose of creation has been fulfilled. The first pasuk after after the Torah tells us in detail how the world was made, how the world was fashioned by the Rabbeinu Shalom. We ended with Shabbos, and immediately afterwards, all this creation that you behold, heaven and earth, they have been created because of Avraham. Chazal tell us, are the same ICAs, the same letters as Avraham. They were created because of Avraham. And Avraham comes on the arena. He's here. He's the purpose. That's what it's all about, Avraham, because of the Jewish nation. And Avraham Avinu, with this week's Sedra, there is a new creation, the creation of the Jewish species, and I'll explain that. There is a mitzvah of emunah, belief in Hashem, and this mitzvah is different than any other mitzvah. It's not written in form of imperative, of commands. Every mitzvah is written in the form of a command, either do or do not. You have to make kiddush on Shabbos. Mention Shabbos with your mouth, lekadosh, in the form of sanctifying it. That's the mitzvah of kiddush. You're supposed to wear tzitzis. V'yasulam tzitzis. They shall make tzitzis. They shall, or you shall. And if it's a negative mitzvah, a mitzvah slaisas, a mitzvah that the mitzvahs do not do it, then it's also in a command form. You're not supposed to eat anything that's not kosher. Don't eat anything which has been despised by the Rabbeinu Shalom because of its kashrus condition, because there is no kedusha in it, but rather sunnah. So every mitzvah is written in form of a command. The Rambam puts down the mitzvah of emunah, belief in Hashem. The pasuk which tells us that we're supposed to believe in Hashem is the first pasuk in the Aseret Adibos, which is Anochi Hashem Alekecha. I am Hashem, your God. Now, this pasuk really is a command. It's a statement. Did I ever explain this before to you? It's a statement. And there is another opinion, that of the Ramban. The Rambam, whom I mentioned first, is Rabbeinu Moshe ben Maimon. The Ramban, with a nun at the end, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachman, says that the mitzvah of emunah is not a mitzvah. It's not included in Taryag mitzvahs, in the 613 mitzvahs, because it's more important than the mitzvah. It's a prerequisite for the mitzvahs. If there is no mitzvah, if there's nobody who issues the commands, then there can't be any mitzvah, then there can't be any command. First, we must establish the fact that there is a mitzvah, there is a commander. And then we shall know that he commands us to be Mikayim, to obey his mitzvahs. So, Anoich Hashem Elokecha is not a mitzvah, the Ramban says. It's the basement of the Torah on which the whole Torah is built. It's the foundation. So it's even more important than the mitzvah, and therefore it's not in the minyan. It's not it's not in one of the 613. It's the one which is before. The pasuk seems to indicate on the surface that the Ramban is more correct, because Anochi Hashem Elokecha, the mitzvah of Emunah, is not given to us in form of a mitzvah, in form of a command. It's a statement. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am your God, asher etzeicha me'eretz Mitzrayim mebeis avadim, that I extracted you, I took you out of Mitzrayim. So, to explain this, well, there are certain knowledges, certain items of knowledge which every person has to the degree that he absorbed that knowledge, and that knowledge comes from outside of him. He reads a book and he gets that knowledge. It's not part of him. And he acquired it from the outside, and being this knowledgeable person that he is, he has acquired knowledge, and his children won't have that knowledge unless they do the studying themselves. This is not hereditary, because it's something that comes from the outside. It's acquired. However, there are certain traits or characteristics about a person that are hereditary. He has blue eyes. So by Mendelian law, his children will also have blue eyes. Or if he has black hair, then his children will have black hair. And this is a hereditary trait. Knowledge is not a hereditary trait. It's something which is acquired, as mentioned before. However, there are certain items of intelligence which are hereditary. And this is one of the great wonders of the zillions upon endless wonders of the Rabbeinu Shalom. How certain items of knowledge are inherited. They're in the chromosomes. Let's say a beaver builds a dam. It does a wonderful job at building its dam. I cannot build a dam like a beaver does until I will get some instructions in engineering. And a little beaver which has just been born, if it would be separated from its parents, and when it grows up a bit, it's thrown into a pond, that beaver will build a dam without having been instructed or guided by its parents. How does a beaver know how to build a dam? I will not admit to the fact that the beaver is more intelligent than I am. So why can't I build a dam like the beaver can? Why am I not so resourceful as it is? Because I have not inherited that knowledge. This is a hereditary knowledge. A spider builds a web. The egg never met its mother, probably, and it knows how to make a web exactly with the same pattern and with the same skill as the mother spider did. It did it without any 10 easy lessons. It knows how to make a web. It's part of the spider. It's in its blood. It's in its chromosomes. A bird has a certain ability to fly thousands of miles away for the winter and come back in the spring to the exact same tree in the exact same backyard. And it doesn't do so by memory, by remembering all the rivers and the brooks and the mountains and the dales on the way. The bird has a certain power of remembering, which is part of being a bird. And the man who is supposed to be intelligent is what's this Latin word for man? Which Homo sapien, which means the smart man. He can't remember by one trip how to go back exactly to the same backyard, thousands of miles. And so this is something which it has by virtue of being a bird. Humans also have knowledge, items of intelligence which are hereditary. Let's say an infant, when it's born, knows how to drink milk because it knows the law of vacuum. And if it wouldn't know this law, it would die of hunger. And there would be no way of feeding the baby without the baby forming some kind of a vacuum and having the milk come its way. And when it grows older, it forgets this law, and it has to study it in school. But it has it by heredity. Now, Jew knows that there is a Rebbeinu Shalom. He knows it. It's a hereditary trait. Every Jew knows the Rebbeinu Shalom. And this we have in this week's Seder. Abraham Avinu was Reish L'Ma'aminim, Chazal called him, the first one of the believers. And he is the father of all the believers. We believe instinctively in the Rebbeinu Shalom. And it's in our blood. And Avraham Avinu passed this down to us. It is expected that every human being should believe in the Rebbeinu Shalom, but not like a Jew. The Goyim, when the great Yom Hadin will come, the Goyim will be taken to task why they didn't believe in one God. And Rabbi Chanan Wasserman explains, everything points out to one God. The universe in which we live, the wonders of creation, even without going beyond ourselves. Says Eiv. From my own body I can see God. You know, everything is so wonderful in the human body. And the scientist who happens not to believe takes everything for granted. He knows that everything must have a reason. To me it was a very stirring experience when I was, excuse me for mentioning this fact, we're supposed to think about Torah and mitzvahs at all times, as much as we can manage. And there are places that we are not allowed, that are tamei, and where you have it in the you have a seminar about it, Tochas Beis HaKisei. the laws of the laboratory. We are not allowed to think about Vamsha B'Kedusha. And it's a good idea for somebody who knows that it's going to be difficult for him to limit his thinking, to take along something to read. And I generally do that. When I was in Eretz Yisrael, I didn't have anything to read, and I found a medical book, because the one whose apartment it was a student of anatomy. And there was a book of anatomy for beginners and for medical students, the fundamentals of anatomy. Every page, that book had several hundred pages. Every page had about 20 or 30 wonders on it. It was astounding. Everything has a reason. Why is... I never knew why the back of a person is curved. It's sort of S-shaped. Because when he jumps, if his back would be straight like a stick, then his spine wouldn't be able to cushion in and absorb the shock. But if it's S-shaped, then he bends when he jumps. He has resilience, and he doesn't hurt himself. Just one little item which never occurred to me. But the anatomist, the one who studies anatomy, he knows why is it S-shaped, why is it curved? Because of this reason. It can't be anything else. In other words, the one who studies medicine, the one who studies the human body, found out so much that he came to a point where he knows that everything must have a reason. And in my nose, there are thousands of wonders. Every part of the body has wonders. The eye, what a wonderful camera it is. There's no camera that compares with the eye. And if somebody would drop his camera and the lens would get a little scratch, he would have to go and have that lens replaced or repaired or whatever. There's something about the human eye. It has a built-in repair system. And it has shutters that, the eyebrows and the hair, which don't allow, to the extent which it doesn't allow any foreign particles to come into the eye, protects the eye. And should somebody, let's say, throw something towards the eye, by reflex, the eye will shut. And the arm will jump up right in front to protect the eye, because the eye needs more protection than the arm. The person doesn't even have to think about it that he's protecting his eye. It's normal. The nervous system will do the thinking for him. And he will have a built-in controlling system. And if there is a lot of light in the room, the pupil is going to become thinner. And otherwise, if there's a dark room, it will expand so that it should emit more light. So he should be able to see everything and there are many, much more wonders in the eye. A built-in washing system. In case a particle of dust comes in, then there are glands which will immediately send tears down to wash out that particle of dust which entered illegally. And that's just one eye. And then there's another eye with the same wonders. And they work together. They work like a team, and you should be able to see 3 dimensions, which you won't be able to see with only one eye. And cannot exist and function like an eye unless it's supplied with blood. So we have the circulatory system, which starts off with the heart and all the blood vessels, the veins and the arteries, and to supply the blood to the eye and to all the numerous other organs in the body. And it wouldn't be able to exist. And the blood system brings the necessary nutrients to the eye that it needs for repair and for functioning, the oxygen, the energy, and it carries off the waste. And then where does it get the oxygen? We spoke about the oxygen. So we'll have to start very much at length explaining the respiratory system, which is a wonder all by itself. And then where would the respiratory system get the energy and the raw materials to function as the other parts of the body? It gets it from the digestive system, which is another study all by itself. And all the organs of the body are each one in itself is a wonder, and they're dependent one upon the other, because you can't have the eye without the heart, or the heart without the lung, and the lung without the brain, and the brain without the digestive system, and so on and so on. And we can just go on endlessly this way, and every day new wonders of the human body are discovered, just endless. And so the scientist, by the medical student, by studying medicine for a while, will get a new kind of approach to medicine. When he sees something in the body, whatever he discovers in the body, he won't ask just what is this. He'll also ask why is this, because he has learned to appreciate that the body has a plan. It isn't something which was put together at random. Everything is planned out in the body. Who is such an artist like our God, the pasuk says, that created such a body with external organs and internal organs, all wondering, all functioning in coordination, one with the other. So everything has a reason. So we don't have to go outside of ourselves and explore the wonders of the universe, the sky and the stars and the sun and the moon and the other planets, and go to the field to see the wonders of botany, and go to the zoo to see the wonders of zoology or whatever. And we don't have to go beyond ourselves. So, therefore, as I mentioned before, we can take the guy to task. Why don't you believe in one Rebbeinu Shalom, when everything indicates that there is one God who controls everything in the universe? Now, a Jew is different than a guy, because besides understanding that there is one God, and there are many opportunities in the universe, there are many opportunities in our environment to teach us this. Besides that, a Jew believes instinctively in God. There's a very interesting Sefer in the beginning of Masechet Pesachim. The halacha is that if thief would come to my home, I would try to gain entrance, I'm allowed to kill him. I don't know if the United States court would support this. They didn't particularly do so in the Getz case, but the Torah says I'm allowed to kill him because he's coming to kill me. Because if I'm going to resist, so he's going to respond to that resistance by trying to kill me. So I'm allowed to kill him. He's a Vaidai. He's trying to kill me, and I'm allowed to kill him in self-defense. But what happens if the one who comes to steal at my house is my father? I'm not allowed to kill him because the father won't kill his child. So therefore, it's not called self-defense. Now, what would be the din? Supposing if somebody moved into a new location and his father, who is a thief by profession, doesn't know that the son moved into a new location, and he happens to hit upon his son's residence. And the son knows that it's his father who's trying to get in. But the father doesn't know that that's his son. Is the son allowed to kill the father in self-defense because he's a Reidef? The Chassam Sofer says no. Because instinctively, a father will not kill a son. Without even realizing it's his son. There's a certain instinct of belonging, a certain instinct of relation, and even of belonging. Even the ox knows his master. The chamaya, the lowly animal, can identify the avus, that is the receptacle where the food for the donkey is put in. He knows that this is his master's receptacle. He knows it by instinct. But the mere fact that he is a belonging of his master. And so the Navi continues and says, you are children of God. Don't you know? Don't you know? Don't you know who your Creator is, who your Father in heaven is? We are children of God. The Goyim are creations of God, but Yidden are children of God. And therefore, by instinct, we should know the Rabbeinu Shalom. So, the first one who really knew the Rabbeinu Shalom by Emunah, Emunah doesn't mean conviction. Emunah means belief. The one who first knew the Rabbeinu Shalom by Emunah is the one where the word Emunah appears first in the Torah. In this week's Ezra, V'hemen b'Hashem, Avraham Avinu believes in Hashem, v'yachshaveh lo yitzedakah. And this was Avraham Avinu, the first believer. Avraham Avinu, with his coming upon this world, a new species was introduced. A species like the beaver, who knows instinctively by virtue of heredity how to build a dam. Like the spider who knows how to make a web. The Jew instinctively by heredity believes in Hashem. He believes in God. Now, this is part of his organism. He can spoil his organism. Just like in the body, in the bodily organism can be spoiled by abuse. A Jew can spoil his spiritual organism by abuse. Now, if somebody would make it a habit to eat sawdust with milk for breakfast, of course, he's going to abuse his stomach and he's going to lose his appetite. And the normal, natural appetite for food, he won't have that anymore. He's going to be deprived of that natural appetite because he abused his stomach and he spoiled it. What should he do? He should go to the doctor get medicines, and see to it that the stomach isn't any longer out of order, that he should have the necessary medicines to heal himself, and that his organism should function like a healthy organism should. In the spiritual sense, it's also the same way. The Rambam says that all the ailments of the spirit are compared to the ailments of the body. So therefore, in the spiritual sense, it's also the same way. Somebody can spoil his emunah. Every Jew instinctively believes in God, but somebody can spoil his emunah by abusing his neshama, by bad food, chayfa food, immoral life, other aveiros. Every aveira clogs up the Jewish heart, and what happens if somebody's heart is clogged up? He'll have to come to the doctor and ask for treatment. He'll have to get off cholesterol, and sometimes and take medicines, so that he should open up the arteries to the heart, and he should have his necessary blood supply. Sometimes he might even need a bypass, depending on the amount of damage which he did to his heart by his wrong diet. Now, the same thing is in Lechni. If somebody can clog up his heart, and he won't feel that there is a Rabbeinu Shleidim in the world, and any Aveira can do that. Aveira metamtemes liba shabadim, the Gemara says. An Aveira clogs up the heart of a person. It means the spiritual heart. There are two Aveiras, which more than any other Aveira does that. The first one is machalis asurais, forbidden food, and the second one is kedusha, holiness. That's referring to a person's moral behavior. And these two Aveiros, if any one in these two areas of kedusha samachalim or kedusha sabris, is transgressed, these two Aveiros are going to clog up his organism, and he won't feel that there's Rabbeinu Shleidim there, and he'll have to come in for treatment. So, and he will respond to treatment. There are medicines for that. It may take a while, but there are medicines for that. But a healthy, sound Jew should instinctively believe in Hashem. And the first one to believe in Hashem instinctively was Abraham. It was a new creation. It was something new upon earth when he appeared. We say every morning in davening, which we take these psukim in Divrei Hayamim, Atu Hashem Elokim, you are Hashem, Asher Atu Asisas Hashemayim, Shmei Hashemayim, who made the heavens and the heavens above the heavens, the earth and all that it contains, Hayamim Chalasha Behem, the seas, the oceans and everything that they contain, Yata Mechayis Kulam, you charge life into every one of them, and we're finished with that. We're finished with creation. But there's still something missing in creation. All the animals, all the birds, all the insects and fish and plants are there, and planets are there already. But there's one item in creation missing yet. A Jew who believes in Hashem. So David HaMelech finishes with the same wording. He paraphrases the first pasuk. Atu Hashem Elokim, you are Hashem, Asher B'charta B'Avram, We chose Avram. But Tzaisa Miyokastin, the Samta Shmei Avraham, and you made his name Avram. It's a new species with a new name. And Avraham is Behibaram. He is the purpose and of creation. He is the crown jewel of creation. In what is Avram Avinu unique? That he is a new creation which didn't exist before. Avram Avinu believes in Hashem. Ne'eman. He is charged with emunah. He believes. That is this new species. And therefore, we have in this week's Sedra, and the last week's Sedra, and the next week's Sedra, that both Avraham and Sarah, they were both infertile. They couldn't have any children naturally. And Hashem made a miracle for both of them that they were able to beget and bear children. And the reason is explained in Sfarim that Avram Avinu was a new creation, a new species. And a species reproduces generation after generation. But Avram Avinu was not a continuity of the human race which was started off by Adam and by Noah. He was something new. And therefore, his posterity would not in any way identify itself with the previous generations. Being that he is a new creation, a new power of reproduction had to be produced in him and created anew by the Rabbeinu Shalom, because he is not a link in the long chain starting with Noach or with Adam. He's a new thing and he's starting a new species. So therefore, this miracle of Avraham Avinu being able to have children and of Sarah being capable to bear children was very necessary for the Jewish nation, because they started off a new species with a new origin, originating from the first one in the species, Avraham Avinu. And therefore we will find at the end of last week's Sedra that Avraham Avinu left his father and mother, and Rashi brings with very much brevity something which the Medrash explains more at length, that Avraham Avinu left his father and his mother, and he was, and the Rabbeinu Shalom told him, lecha ani paiter mikibud av, v'en ani paiter acheira mikibud av. You are exempt from respect to your father, but no one else. We could criticize Avraham Avinu. You leave over an old father, an aging father and mother, and you're leaving them alone and going away. Now, where is Kibbutz Avraim? But Hashem told Avraham Avinu he should leave his parents, lech lecha and go. So Avraham Avinu was told, don't worry about Kibbutz Av. You don't have to be mechabed your father. You don't have to give respect to your father. He's not your father. You're a new species. So this is what appears in this week's Sedra. So far, it's the third creation. In Bereshis, we have the creation of the world. Last week, we discussed the creation of the new world after the Mabul, Noach's world. And this week, we have the creation of still a new world, the Jewish world. And it's a world which has the Jewish nation in it, which is the purpose of the creation. And the Sedra begins Vayomer Hashem al Avram, lech lecha. Go to Eretz Yisrael, because you are the first Jew, and go to the land which is the beginning of creation. The first pasuk in the Torah talks about Eretz Yisrael, because Eretz Yisrael is the beginning of creation. The Gemara tells us that Eretz Yisrael was the first piece of geography which was created by Hashem. And from there, it was the embryo of creation, the Even Shia, the rock from which everything developed. From there, the globe started developing and forming into the globe. But the place of the Beis HaMikdash, and was the first thing to be made. After that, Yerushalayim. After that, Eretz Yisrael. And after that, the rest of the world. And Avraham Avinu, being the first Jew, who was the purpose of creation, really belongs in Eretz Yisrael. So the first pasuk in the Torah speaks about Eretz Yisrael. And Rashi explains that Bereshit starts off telling us that Eretz Yisrael belongs to the Jewish nation. And there we will find an answer to those who say to the Jews, list them as you are thieves, that you are taking Eretz Yisrael away from the 7 nations that inhabited them before the Jews. No, Eretz Yisrael belongs to the Rabbeinu Shalom, and he made it for the Jewish nation. In fact, the first words of the Torah is referring to the Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara says in Sukkah that Bereshit is Barashis. The Rabbeinu Shalom created, we once spoke about it, the Rabbeinu Shalom created the place of the Mizbeach, the cavity where the wine, from the place where Adam Rishon was taken. Adam Rishon was also taken from the place of beginning, from the place of Genesis. And so the first word in the Torah speaks about Eretz Yisrael. Interestingly, the first Haftarah, the Haftarah of Bereshit, is the first Haftarah of the year, and that also talks about Eretz Yisrael. And it's the first introduction that we have to Nevi'im in the form of the Haftarah. And the Pasuk starts telling us in the Haftarah that he made the world, the Tzedzo'era, and that which developed from the world. And which land am I talking about? The Rabbeinu Shalom gives a neshama to the people on that land, and a ruach, also a soul, to those that walk on it. And the Gemara tells us in Ksubis that whoever lives in Eretz Yisrael will have Olam Haba, because it says, do have Olam Haba and will be freed from his avayros. That's nice and neshama la'amal leha v'ruach l'hayolachem. But even if you walk 4 steps in Eretz Yisrael, you're already a zaychat Olam Haba. So the pasuk, so the Gemara tells us that this pasuk is referring to Eretz Yisrael. The first words which Rabbeinu Shalom told Avraham Avinu was go to Eretz Yisrael. The first words which Rabbeinu Shalom told Yitzchak was don't go out of Eretz Yisrael. The first word which Rabbeinu Shalom told Avraham Avinu was lech lecha meyartzecha el ha'aretz asher areka. Go to the land which I am going to direct you to, which is Eretz Yisrael. Avraham Avinu is midas hachesed. If we have any love to the Rabbeinu Shalom, it's because we have it as a Yerusha from Avraham Avinu. Chesed, love to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Or the mitzvahs, the commandments, which are positive mitzvahs to do, is because we love the Rabbeinu Shalom. So Avraham Avinu was given the mitzvah of going to Eretz Yisrael in the form of a mitzvah sasai. The first word Hashem told Yitzchak was, "Al tayret Mitzrayim, go ba'aretz hazeh." Don't go to Mitzrayim. Rather be in this land. Yitzchak, Avraham Avinu, the Rabban Shalom started talking to him in the form of a lecha. In other words, don't leave Eretz Yisrael. Not do, but don't. Because he is the source of all the lechas. He's midas hadin. The first word that Hashem Yisbarach told the Yankov Avinu was referring to Eretz Yisrael. At the first, when he had that dream at the site of the Beis HaMikdash, so Hashem said, "Anochi Hashem Elokai Avraham Elokai Yitzchak, I am Hashem, your God, God of your fathers. Ha'aretz asher ata sheicher v'lo lecha etnenu ulezarecha." The land that you are lying upon, I am going to give it to you and to your children. So, this is the first. So there's one first land, and there's one first person. And the first person, Avraham Avinu, belongs to the first land. The person of Bereishis belongs in the land of Bereishis. And that's what our Sedra tells us today. So when Avraham Avinu left Eretz Yisrael, because of the hunger which is described in the beginning of Lech Lecha, and he went to Mitzrayim, so Sarah found herself detained, being kept by Parai. And the Ramban says that Avraham Avinu did a big sin by going to Mitzrayim. Firstly, why did he go to Mitzrayim? Secondly, why did he subject Sarah to Parai and his court? Why did he say things which caused Parai to think that this is his sister rather than his wife, and Parai was entertaining thoughts of marrying Sarah, and she was quite in danger of it, if not for the fact that Hashem protected her, and Parai was inflicted with makais, with the plagues. So, but why did Avraham Avinu endanger Sarah by allowing her to go to Parai? So the Ramban says that because of that, he suffered in the form of his children who had to go down to the Galus in Mitzrayim. And being that the sin was in Mitzrayim, so the punishment was also in Mitzrayim. This Ramban is a rather puzzling Ramban. The Ramban couldn't find a good word for Avraham Avinu. You know, that Avraham went to Mitzrayim, and the first thing that Avraham Avinu does when he comes to Eretz Yisrael is to do a big sin. Chet Gadol Chata Avraham Avinu. Rabbeinu Yaina in the Shari Tshuva tells us that even though it says, Havidanas Kaladam Lekaf Schus, you should always judge a person by merit, and always give them the benefit of the doubt. You see somebody doing something which is questionable. It may be an aveira, may not be an aveira. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Say to yourself, well, he certainly is not doing any aveira. I do not accept the fact, I do not believe that this person is doing aveira. Being done with kashrus. But that's only within reasonable limits, if it makes sense. But that's by an average person. However, somebody who has a reputation as a tzaddik, it's not. You have to go all the way out, even if it's not reasonable, even if it's going to extremes. Always try to think that he really didn't do an Aveira. You should be done a tzaddik, to a much greater degree than you do an ordinary person. That's how Rabbeinu Yaina Paskins. Now, certainly, Avraham Avinu was a tzaddik. Why does the Ramban criticize Avraham Avinu and says that he did an Aveira? He couldn't find a good reason for Avraham Avinu going to Mitzrayim and for Sarah being allowed to enter the court of Parai and without any resistance from Avraham Avinu. I could find a schus in Avraham Avinu. Why couldn't the Ramban? If the time will allow, I'm going to tell you what I think about Avraham Avinu. But so why couldn't the Ramban think about a good reason for Avraham Avinu doing this? And he puts him, and Avraham Avinu is put down as somebody who did a sin, and the Ramban's Sefer is an eternal Sefer, hundreds and hundreds of years already that we have the Ramban, and every year thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Jews learn when they come to Parshas Lech Lecha that Avraham Avinu did a sin. Now, the Maharal, you certainly, I suppose, heard of the Maharal. We know of the Maharal as creating a Gailam, creating a form out of clay in the form of a human being, which was a Gailam. And the Gailam we usually call a dumb person is called a Gailam. But the Maharal did more than creating a Gailam. The Maharal actually, his biggest feat was not making a Gailam, but making people, transforming Gailams into people. He gave us his Sfarim, his wonderful Sfarim, which teach us very much. They give us, I believe he was probably, if we want to call it Jewish philosophy, he was probably the greatest Jewish philosopher that ever was, the Maharal. And he gives us Jewish thought. So the Maharal explains in one of the Sfarim that the difference between a Jew and a Goy is that a Jew is fundamentally a tzaddik as opposed to a Goy. And when a Jew does an Aveira, it's only on the surface, but it doesn't reach his inside. It isn't because he is internally bad. It's just on the surface. Just like somebody, who fell into the mud, or who, let's say, swept a chimney, so he's black. Now, a black person from Africa can wash himself in soap and water for decades and he'll remain black. But somebody who swept the chimney and is black will just go into a shower with a little warm water and soap. In a jiffy, he'll be white again. So that's how he explains that an Aveira by a Yid, by a Jew, is only on the surface. It's the lech. It happened. And something which happened by coincidence isn't anything that prevails, isn't anything that's permanent. It'll go away. It's only temporary. However, when a guy does an Aveira, it's because of his very nature and the blemish which he causes upon himself, the coloring, the dark coloring which he colors himself with an Aveira is permanent. That's what the Maharal explains. So therefore, a Jew can do tshuva on an Aveira. Tshuva is not for Goyim. So, in the beginning of this week's Sadra, there is something which needs explanation. And the Mepharshim ask this kasha. Why is it that the Torah doesn't tell us anything about Avraham Avinu before we start talking about Hashem's relation with Avraham Avinu? Last week said, in contrast, when we see that the Rabbeinu Shalom, after 10 generations, which he just fleetingly passed through, stops by Noach, and we have an entire Sedra about Noach. So the first pasuk in the Sedra tells us why Hashem favored Noach. Eila Torah is Noach. Noach is tzaddik. Tamim hayibedaraisa. That's all the Kimasavich Noach. Noach was a tzaddik, a righteous person. Therefore, Hashem bestowed favor upon him, and he saved him from the Mabul while others suffered. By Avraham Avinu, in this week's Sedra, after going through the 10 generations from Noach to Avraham, and Hashem stopping by Avraham, the Torah does not introduce Avraham Avinu and the reason why he found favor by Hashem. The pasuk doesn't start, Eila told us, Avraham ish tzaddik. The pasuk starts immediately. Vayayim Hashem al Avram, lech lecha me'yatzecha. Hashem said to Avram, go to your land, go to Eretz Yisrael, and I'm going to make you a large nation, and I'm going to bless you, and your name will be great, and you will be a source of blessing. That's what Hashem tells Avraham Avinu. Why? Why did he deserve it? Was he a tzaddik? Why doesn't the Torah tell us? Avraham Avinu actually did have a history of tzidkus at this point, because as the Midrashim tell us, he already had his encounters with Nimrod and the king who declared himself a god, and Avraham Avinu defied him, and he said, no, you're not a god, because there's one God who created heaven and earth, that's Hashem. And Avraham Avinu understood that there's one God, and he worshipped God and preached the presence and the existence of God, even though he endangered himself by doing so, by inciting the wrath of Nimrod upon him. And Nimrod actually threw him into the fire. And then Hashem made a nest, he made a miracle, and the fire did not harm Avraham Avinu at all, and he emerged from the fire without any any harm at all to his body. And then Avraham Avinu, then Hashem introduced himself to Avraham Avinu, and he said, Anihu Bal Abir, I am the maker of the world. This maker that you endangered yourself and you gave away your life to preach his presence and his truth, well, here I am. And Avraham Avinu was Zeiche, he had the fortune of the first Nevuah, the first prophecy of Hashem Yisbarach talking directly to Avraham Avinu after Ur Kasdim. But the Torah doesn't tell us that. The Torah just said that Avraham Avinu went out of Ur Kasdim, and we need the Midrashim to tell us the story of Ur Kasdim. The Torah does not tell us. So why doesn't the Torah tell us who Avraham Avinu was? Why he was deserving of such a relation with Hashem, that Hashem should tell him to go to Eretz Yisrael? You are the rashis of mankind, and you belong in the rashis of geography. Why doesn't the Torah tell us that? I will answer that with a thought which I saw someplace else from the Maral, and I will apply this thought to Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu, the Maral says it by Yetzias Mitzrayim. A man from the house of Levi came, and he took the daughter of Levi, and they had a child, and that was Moshe, and Moshe was the redeemer of Klal Yisrael from Mitzrayim. But who was Moshe Rabbeinu's father and his mother? The Torah doesn't tell us. A man of Levi took a daughter of Levi from the tribe of Levi. That's all we're told. Later on, if we're zeicha to learn more Torah, we're going to find out that the father of Avraham Avinu, of Moshe, was a big tzaddik, Amram, and his mother was a big tzaddikus, Yechevet, who endangered her life to save the Jewish children when she was a midwife, and she saved the Jewish children, and she did not obey the edicts of Parai, who commanded that she should kill the Jewish children. So he was a son of a tzaddik and a tzaddikus. So why doesn't the Torah tell us who his father and his mother were? So the Maharal explains that the Geula of Yisrael is absolute, and it is not dependent on anything that happens. Jews must be redeemed. They have a future, they have a calling, and they will eventually be the nation which is the Oyel Goyim, the lantern of all peoples, and they will shed light upon the world and teach all nations that there is a God in the world. That is Klal Yisrael. And when they are in Mitzrayim, they must be redeemed, whether they deserve it or not. It's a hachir. It must be so. There are no alternatives. So, if the Torah would have told us that Amram the tzaddik married Yechevet the tzaddikus, and their child was Moshe, and Moshe was fortunate he had the schus to redeem the Jews from Mitzrayim, I would have said, well, you see, Amram and Yechevet have the credit. They were big tzaddikim, and by the virtue of their tzidkus, they had a son who was great enough and holy enough and powerful enough and capable enough of redeeming the Jews of Mitzrayim. But if Amram and Yechevet wouldn't have been tzaddikim, they wouldn't have had such a son. And if they wouldn't have had such a son, there wouldn't be a redeemer worthy of redeeming. And if there wouldn't have been a redeemer, Yidden would have remained in Mitzrayim. So the Maharal says that can't be. It's impossible that Jews should remain in Mitzrayim. It isn't by coincidence that it happened to be that there was a tzaddik and a tzaddikus, and there was zeicha because of their tzidkus to a good son. That's why we were redeemed from Mitzrayim. And if not, we wouldn't have been redeemed. No. By Yaelechishmi Beis Levi, a man took a woman and they had Moshe. And I don't care who that man is, and I don't care who that woman is, and I don't care what is the cause or what is the effect. Jews must be redeemed. Let it come from a man and a woman, and I don't care who they are. Of course, they're Amram and Yechevet, but that's not the reason why Moshe was born. The reason why Moshe was born is because he had to be born. There's no two ways about it. It can't be otherwise. So I would say that this is why Hashem doesn't tell us why Avraham Avinu earned favor by Hashem. Why the Torah doesn't introduce Avraham Avinu that he was a nish tzaddik like the Torah introduces Noach. Because why was the world created? Edo told us because of Avraham. I don't care. I don't care whether Avraham Avinu was a tzaddik and not, whether he deserves the favor bestowed upon him by Hashem or not, so that the Jewish nation should come out of him. There has to be a Jewish nation. Not by the virtue of his tzidkus, not because Abraham is tzaddik, that's why he was the first Jew, and if not, there would never have been any first Jew. There had to be a Jewish nation on earth. And so the Torah doesn't have to tell us the reason because he was a tzaddik. So therefore, the Torah starts off immediately without describing the virtues of Avraham or the schusim of Avraham Avinu. The Torah starts off. The Eibusha said, Avraham Avinu, you're the first Jew. Go to the land of first. You you're the Rashis, you're the beginning, you're the Jew of Genesis. Go to the land of Genesis, because that's where you belong, and that's where your roots will take hold. So therefore, we don't have the Torah doesn't have to explain that. Actually, so therefore, I would understand the Ramban. I know why Avraham Avinu went to Mitzrayim. Avraham Avinu knew that his offspring are eventually going to be in Mitzrayim. He knew that. He had Ruach HaKodesh at this point. He was a Navi already. God has spoken to him. I'll let you in on a secret. And also on the source of my information. The Medrash and Chuma and Pashas Vayeshev tells us a big secret, and it's going to be difficult for you to understand it and to make peace with it when you hear it. It'll take you a while to absorb what I'm going to tell you now. What would have happened if Adam Rishon would not have eaten from the Eitz Hadas? He would have lived forever? He would not have lived forever. He had to eat from the Eitz Hadas so that he should not live. It was the Rabbeinu Shalom's plan and creation that Adam should be created, he shall eat from the Eitz Hadas, a man should die, and there is a whole plan, a very godly plan, which we cannot understand. It's something which the human mind, or even the minds of the biggest malachim and srafim, cannot behold. It's too profound. What the Rabbeinu Shalom's plan in the world is. There had to be Eitz Hadas, and Adam should eat from it and bring death into the Zman of the Tikkun, when death would again disappear from earth. It had to be that way. He had no choice. The compelling force which compelled Adam Rishon and Chava to eat from the Eitz Hadas was so strong, it was beyond their ability to struggle and combat that. They couldn't. It had to be that way. Why did the Jews go to Mitzrayim? Because Avraham Avinu sinned, and he said, Bama Eida. No, the message tells us. They had to go to Mitzrayim. It was part of the heavenly plan. So that from Mitzrayim, the Jewish nation should emerge as a nation. Why did the brothers sow Joseph? Because there was jealousy and hatred and undesirable traits among the brothers, the children, the holy Shvatim of Yaakov? No. Yosef had to be sold to Mitzrayim to start the Goddess rolling. They had no choice. He had to go to Mitzrayim. Why did Moshe not enter Eretz Yisrael? Because of the chait of Mei Meriva, when he didn't speak to the stone to give out water? No. Moshe couldn't go into Eretz Yisrael. So he had to stumble upon the rock of Mei Meriva. He had no choice. Now, I am not an apicaitus by saying that, because I'm quoting the message. And Avraham Avinu knew this. Avraham Avinu knew that Yidden have to go to Mitzrayim. And therefore, he had to prepare the ground for them. When 210 years after Yidden being in Mitzrayim, they were a nation of 600,000 males above 20, plus their wives and children. Several million people. They were a pure nation. They were pure and moral. There was never any sin, any moral sin in that nation. A people of several million, a nation of several million people, never have committed a sin in the area of morality. there was one woman, Shleimus Tazdivri, who had relations with the Mitzri against her will, and she was the mother of this Isha Yisraeli, who was denied his place in the Jewish camp in the Midbar. One exception, Achas Haisa Upirsa Ma'akasis. In that whole nation, there was only one, and the Torah broadcast that. The Torah exposed her. She is the one, and nobody else. How were the Yidden able to keep such a purity in Mitzrayim? How were the men able to keep such a purity? How were the women able to keep such a purity? So the Gemara tells us that Sarah, by being in the house of Parai and withstanding all the pleas and all the promises of Parai that she should wed him, and she kept her purity, and she struggled against him, but of course he promised her royalty and everything. By that tzidkes, she was zeichet that she brought a kedusha, a holiness, into all the Jewish daughters after her, and they were able to keep themselves holy in Mitzrayim. How were the Jewish men able to keep themselves holy in Mitzrayim? Because of Yosef, with his encounter with the wife of Potiphar. And it was because of his tzidkes that gave the men kedusha in Mitzrayim. Avraham Avinu knew this. He had to go to Mitzrayim to prepare the ground for his children in Mitzrayim. This is a very good limit for going to Mitzrayim and for having Sarah being detained by Parai to effect such a schus. The Ramban knew it. The Ramban knew the Zayah. He always brings down things from the Zayah. The Zayah says that Avraham Avinu wasn't afraid that Sarah would be molested in the house of Parai, because he saw the Shekhinah with her. He saw the Spirit of God is dwelling upon her. He knew that nothing bad can happen to her. And the Ramban could have written that also. Why did the Ramban write that Avraham Avinu did a sin? But with what we discussed till now, I think that the answer is evident, self-evident, because the Ramban had a reason for telling that Avraham Avinu did a sin right in the beginning of our being introduced to the story of Avraham Avinu. Let us know that Avraham Avinu is capable of doing a sin, a chet gadol, a great sin, the way that Ramban writes, and still he's Avraham Avinu and Hashem favors him. Not by the virtue of his tzidkes, not because he is such a big chassid, because he's such a big kadosh, but because there has to be a Jewish nation. That Avraham Avinu remained a tzaddik after that sin, the Ramban knew, because the Zayah asks this kasha. Why did Avraham Avinu go to Mitzrayim without permission? And why did he allow Sarah to go to Parai? So the kasha, the Ramban took from the Zayah, but it doesn't answer the teretz. Because Ramban wants to give us some insight into the Sedra, that the Jewish nation is not based, and the foundation of the Jewish nation, the origin of the Jewish nation, the calling and the future of the Jewish nation is not based on things that happened at random, that they were the choice of a person who could have done one thing or the other thing. No, it has to be that way. There has to be a Jewish nation which consists of people, of Jews who are pure, fundamentally pure, and even when they do an Aveira, it's only on the surface and it can be washed off.
For a shir on the topic of the creation and necessity of the Jewish nation, given Tavshim and Pes, press 1. For a shir on the topic of important lessons that are derived from Maaseh Avos, awareness of Kedushas HaTorah and significance of learning Chumash Rashi, given Tavshin Samach Beis, press 2. For a shir on the topic of the creation and necessity of the Jewish nation, given Tavshim and Pes, press 1. for a share on the topic of important lessons